I am extremely pleased to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Alejandro Chaoul. We've known each other for several years through the Society for Integrative Oncology, which is an evidence-based organization to promote research and education in this field. Dr. Chaoul is really an excellent speaker, and as you know, I think you're going to learn a lot from his talk. He is an integrative medicine expert and primarily focuses on Tibetan meditation and mind-body techniques in various parts of the United States, Latin America, and Europe. And he currently is an assistant professor and director of education at the Integrative Medicine program at MD Anderson Cancer Center at the University of Texas. So please welcome Dr. Chaoul to speak here today.
Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you, Kara. Thank you, everyone who made this possible. I know through chaplaincy, Dr. Elizabeth Lenigan. So thank you, everyone. It's a great honor to be here with all of you, survivors. And it touches me quite closely because, in a way, that's how I started my journey into this area of integrative medicine, particularly with oncology. As we speak today, my dad is a survivor for almost 19 years of prostate cancer. And in a way, that's what the big hand goes to you, who are also survivors. And although I can't say that that was because he was meditating, we can see through this journey how using these practices that we saw the whole panel talking about this morning can be really useful in survivorship, and as you say here, in really being better, in doing the best you can as we survive, not just to talk about the cancer itself, but really about your life. As we say in medical anthropology, they're saying that there's, especially Arthur Kleinman in Harvard was looking at, it's not just about the disease, it's about the illness experience. And so I think that's very, very important to think about. And so, first of all, usually in our most academic talks, we say, I don't have any conflict of interest, which I don't. But most importantly, I wanted to thank the people who organize this, thank all the people who I work with, because I'm going to show some research that have to do with that. But particularly, as Kara was saying, my tradition comes from the Tibetan tradition, so I want to thank my teachers who've been instrumental, not only in, for me, learning the techniques, but really they've been supportive in me bringing this into this area. So my PhD is actually in religious studies, in Tibetan studies. And as I was doing that, as I was saying, my dad was diagnosed with prostate cancer. We're originally from Argentina. I was living in Houston. I was doing my PhD at Rice, a university there. And so I accompanied him there. And it was a particular time. It was just as my first son was about to be born. So it was a stressful time in many things. As I was taking him to MD Anderson, one of the things that we noticed is that besides the oncology treatment, they had started something thanks to people like you that were saying, we don't want just the oncology treatment. We want to be treated more as a holistic person. And something that started at that time in '98 was place of wellness. And the idea of place of wellness is, what about the whole wellness area, not just the medicine? And so I started volunteering there. And just before I volunteered, I asked my teachers, is what I learned from you, can I bring it into this area? I was talking to Dr. Sagar too about how do we appropriate this method. So for me, it was very important to ask my teachers, is this okay to bring it into this area? And they were incredibly supportive, and so I want to thank them for that. as well as another teacher that at that time actually, Namkhai Rinpoche, was actually going through his own cancer. And so I was also asking him, so what do you think? How do we put this program together? And I started putting a program that was called Connecting to the Heart. Because it's really important to connect to the heart. Sometimes we forget and we're so much in our mind. And in these traditions, many times they talk about mind-heart, of being more embodied. And as Maria was saying today with Dr. Benson's research in the fight-or-flight response, when we're more in the mind-heart, instead of reacting in that fight-or-flight response, we can be more in the relaxation response. So for me, when I say connecting with the heart, it's not necessarily the heart organ, it's more the heart-mind, which is really what I learned from my teachers. And I think this is important too, to really see what is important for you. A few years ago, I was giving a talk in Houston at the Jung Center, and someone decided to put this title to it: De-stress, be present, and find your own groove, which it took me a while to understand what groove was. But what's important here is the your own. And some of the speakers talked about this before, that there's many different methods. And what it's here, think of them as tools that are there for you. And the your is important because on one hand, it's something that it's applicable for you, but also, as Dr. Sagar said this morning, like you want to be in control. And the good thing of most of these complementary and integrative medicines is that it puts you in the driving seat. The difficult thing is that you are in the driving seat. So you have to take them. So it's not like a pill that will do the work for you, but actually you have the one to be on that treadmill. You have to be on that cushion. So that's an important component. But what's important is that you can find it in the way that it's useful and easier for you. So for example, I hate going to the gym. Oh, you're recording? Sorry. But what do I do? Luckily, I live only a few miles away from my job, and so I bike to the hospital. So that's one way. Our office is on the 5th floor, so I get to go up and down a few times. And so, in a way, and I have one of these devices that makes sure that if I didn't reach my 10,000 steps, that I walk the dogs for longer that evening. So finding ways of bringing this into your daily life, it's important. So, but also when you see something new, and I know this a lot with the Tibetan tradition, for many of you, this is new material. So this is a phrase that I got from a greeting card that is a paraphrase of a teaching of Buddha Shakyamuni. And it says, believe nothing, no matter where you read it or who has said it, not even if I, the Buddha, has said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. And so what's important here is that when you hear that there are all these different methods out there, that even if there were research and they were done in this particular way, see if they're good for you. And if they are, use them, because that's the way they're going to be useful. Not just because you know that they're good, you need to apply them to you. Now, if they're not, as my teacher Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche would say, press the delete button, don't worry about it. So both things are important. When you delete it, don't worry about it, but use something. Find some techniques that are useful for you. Now, I've heard the panel speaking today too about what we're interested here is not just in physical health. Really, as you know, it's the social health, the psycho-spiritual health. I saw in the further diagram that you have here at Roswell, community health. This is very important. And I was really surprised, but very happily surprised, that in the center of your diagram you have spirituality there, which is really, really important. And I want to emphasize, coming from a background of both religious studies as my academic background, but in my own religious background, I was born in a very Catholic country, Argentina, grew up in a Jewish family, went to Presbyterian school, and of course became Buddhist, right? And still married with a Catholic. My son graduated from Jesuit school. You know, being in Argentina, now we need to support the Jesuits. You know, the Pope is Jesuit, so we need to support that. I think the only thing that I disagree with the Pope, we're in different soccer teams. But other than that, it's fine. So going back to this, what we're looking is that health is at the intersection of not just physical health, but social and psychospiritual health. And this is really important. And this article, if you look, was published in 1977 in Science by George Engel. And in a way, for some of us, it was really seminal. And it kind of triggered something. For others, as you see, it just passed by. I teach this to medical students in a program at the University of Texas that it's medical humanities. And there's another article that says, 25 years later, where are we? And as I was saying, for some, we have made some changes. For others, we haven't. But the possibility is there. And so partly is, like what Roswell is doing now, embracing that we want to emphasize and tell, someone was mentioning, how are the oncologists taking this? Tell the oncologists, tell the different physicians that this is an important part, that you want your health not just about being the physical health, but also the social and the psychospiritual. This is the model that we have at MD Anderson. So we have the physical component, we have the social component, and in the psychospiritual, we talk a lot about mind-body practices. So mind-body practices, which is the area that I focus on, is one of the many areas that is important, and we have so many, right? You will experience this afternoon, as I was looking, you will have Tai Chi and Qigong, you will have yoga, you had the Pilates, there's so many. And again, it's not about which one is best, it's about what suits you. So that's important. But the other part is important from an integrative medicine perspective is how do we look at these practices? And Dr. Kelly mentioned evidence-based. This is important. So there's a consortium of integrative medicine and health. And I want to actually emphasize something that happened in recent years. In the area of integrative medicine, we always talk just about the word medicine. It was alternative medicine, complementary medicine, integrative medicine, 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 and lately we've added this nice word, where I have my health. What about health? Right? I mean, when you look at the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, it's all about pathologies, you know. So what about health? So look, now we're moving more into this idea of integrative medicine and health. So there's a consortium, there's 71 different institutions that get together and try to promote this kind of view of integrative health. What do they mean by integrative medicine? The practice of medicine that reaffirms the importance of the relationship between practitioner and patient, that focuses on the whole person and is informed by evidence. And for those who are physicians, it's informed by evidence. Sometimes it cannot be evidence-based, even if we're not totally evidence-based, at least informed by evidence. That makes use of all appropriate therapeutic approaches, providers, and disciplines to achieve optimal health and healing. So that kind of the middle of the circle. So, as I was saying, in the mind-body area, the National Center for Complementary Alternative Medicines, that now it's called National Center for Complementary Integrative Health, says that there are a variety of techniques designed to enhance the mind's capacity to affect bodily function and symptoms. Now, mind-body is the general term that we use in the West. In many of these traditions, as I was taught, for example, in the Tibetan tradition, they talk about 3 doors: mind, breath, and body. Mind, energy, and body. Mind, sound, and body. And this category of energy is not kind of esoteric, it's actually the field of interaction of mind and body. And in a way, it's where this mind-body practices work, and they're manifested usually through breath, and most of the practices we do are related to breath, for example, yoga, tai chi, and so forth, but some are related to speech, or mantras, or sounds. And so, early on, and as Maria was mentioning Herbert Benson, this is an illustration in the Lulakang in Tibet of a Tumo practitioner, someone who did it's a yogi that is increasing their own heat, as you can see, through breathing practices, through mind, breath, body practices. And there were research by Herbert Benson. But Herbert Benson is very famous, as Maria was saying, for this relaxation response, and it has become, this relaxation response, a really kind of, most of these practices that we do in mind-body really aim at this relaxation response, but there's other things that come with it. And what I want to say, that when we talk about the relaxation response, it's not just about relaxing. It's being relaxed and also aware. Because otherwise, what happens is that we get so relaxed, and although sometimes we do need a nap, that's not meditation, okay? So we'll talk about a little bit about that difference. The other thing is meditation and yoga have become very, very much more in the community. We see it, and this mindful revolution, this mindfulness, again, Maria was talking about that as well, and this is the person that she was mentioning earlier, Jon Kabat-Zinn, and that started, as she was saying, from this full catastrophe living for people with chronic pain that couldn't find ways of working that, and that mindfulness of what he then created, the system, mindfulness-based stress reduction, was very useful. Now, the other aspect is that there's been much more dialogue between East and West, between contemplative practices and scientists, and here you have the Dalai Lama with Francisco Varela, a Chilean neurobiologist who now passed away, but they created something called the Mind and Life Institute, and which they started with these dialogues and really seeing how spirituality and science both are complementary towards that goal. Now, I was talking about spirituality earlier. I think it's important that when we talk about spirituality, it's not that we're talking about one religion. We're talking about spirituality as a way of what's our connection. And so what brings meaning in our life? So for some people, it could be related to God. For some people, it could be related to the universe. Some people can be that it's not religion that the way that they connect to their spirituality. It could be more through music, could be through art, through connectedness to other people. Dr. Sager mentioned the book by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. That's another book that I use also for my medical students. And so, search for meaning is another way of understanding spirituality. So, when, as I was doing my PhD, there was this hospital, as I was saying, that I started volunteering, and then I met Lorenzo Cohen, who Cara knows very well. And Lorenzo said, what about doing some research? And we started doing, so I said, okay, let me know what are you interested in? And he said, what about doing an intervention? And I had no idea what an intervention was. So he said, create a program with a specific population, for a specific population, that then we can test. Is it better than not having the program? And that's how I started. Actually, my first title at MD Anderson was Mind-Body Intervention Specialist. It took me a year to understand what I was doing. But really it was, so creating these mind-body interventions that could be useful, hopefully, or at least we can test them if they'd be useful. And so we've done a number of different research with different populations, lymphoma, breast cancer, particularly with this Tibetan yoga, which was part of my dissertation of how this could be applied to cancer patients. And really looking at how these ancient texts would talk about how the mind can be actually the rider of this horse, because the breath carries the mind everywhere. But the breath is blind. And so if the mind doesn't carry it well, the breath takes us everywhere. Research shows that around 50% of the time, we're not where we are. As Maria was saying, the body is in one place, the mind is somewhere else. So if I ask you now, where are you? Maybe well, I'm in Roswell. Really? You might be like, oh, that lunch was really good. Or, which actually I want to praise you. That was a fantastic lunch, very healthy, so thank you. Or it could be like, did I park in the right place? Or it could be like, what is this guy talking about? Whatever it is, your mind could be going into all these different places. It could be, oh, Tibet, that sounds really nice. Your mind could go there without a passport and come back. So partly is, what about being here? And the research shows that being here makes you happier. Not necessarily listening to me, but I'm saying in any situation, being in the present moment makes you happier. So that's one of the things that it does, besides, as we were talking, this relaxation response. And the body is really kind of the container that allows this mind-breath flow. But it's really important to have all three, mind, breath, and body. So we've done some in the research. We actually got it published. We found that it improves sleep quality, quality, quantity, latency, which is the time you want to go to sleep until you fall asleep, and less sleep medicine. So again, how it correlates to other things that you're already doing. Now, other researchers, such as Elisa Eppel in UCSF, has shown that it affects actually the chromosomes. So these are called telomeres. In the tips of every chromosome, we have a telomere that actually this was discovered by Elizabeth Blackburn. She got the Nobel Prize of Medicine. Together, Elizabeth Blackburn and Elisa Eppel just wrote a book, so I can advertise for them, The Telomere Effect. And so in this book, what they are showing is that, first of all, stress is detrimental, not only for our behavior and how we feel, but actually all the way to the chromosome level, and that mind-body practice can repair that. So that's an important component. The other part is what's happening at the brain. So Richie Davidson at the University of Wisconsin was studying, he's a neuroscientist. He got interested in meditation, and in the same way as Herbert Benson, when he was doing his research at the beginning, he wanted like, well, I'm not going to do this. One of his fellows asked him to do this research on meditation, and he finally agreed. I heard him say in a conference, okay, we'll do it at night and through the back door. And then he actually realized that it was an important research, and that's how he discovered the relaxation response. Richie, too, was actually more of he was a neuroscientist, and he was doing meditation as a second thing because his advisor told him, Richie, if you really want to be a neuroscientist, meditation is really not the way to go. After his meditation studies, he was actually in Time magazine one of the 100 most important people or person that year. In any case, in this slide, you see him with Mathieu Ricard, who's a French biologist who decided to become a Tibetan monk. And 20 years later, Richie brought him into the lab, and he started looking at his brain. And he found that actually, through that meditation, he was off the charts. Now, he didn't have a baseline for him, granted, but he realized that for his meditation, he was all in his left frontal lobe, which was more in the area of effectiveness and happiness. And actually, Mathieu wrote a fabulous book called Happiness, Life's Most Important Task. And what's important about that is that it's a task that you can be familiar with. It's not that either you are happy or not. Another book that I recommend my medical students. And actually, now the media also caught attention to, well, let's see, can meditation change things in the brain? Other things that research has done, and here you have Richie Davidson with John Kabat-Zinn looking at alterations in brain function and immune function by meditation. This is very interesting. Sarah Lazar in Harvard showed that actually through meditation you can increase the gray matter. So it's like going to the gym, right? Someone, in the panel today they were saying, well, you have to take time to go to the gym, you have to take time to sit on a cushion. Well, when you're sitting on a cushion, you can feel that your brain is, so it's increasing their muscle capacity. So we decided, how can we look at this research that is done in the brain? How does it apply to our cancer population? And so we decided to look at chemobrain. How many people feel that chemobrain has impacted your life? Yeah. Right? So it's an important thing to look at. And so as we were looking at chemobrain, we decided to go with a particular Tibetan practice that is with sounds. Because when you're doing the sounds, it's not the sounds that someone else does or that you do with an instrument, but you do the sounds. It actually reverberates in your brain, but also for each one, there's a particular task. So we have this particular practice that this is again from the same teachers, from Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, and they have these 3 sounds, Ah, Om, and Hum. And for each one, not only there's a specific sound, as you can see, there's a specific color that you visualize, there's a specific place in your body, and there's a particular task. So for the Ah, you're kind of clearing and cleansing. For the Om, you're connecting. For the Hum, you're bringing into your life. And so by doing this practice, what we found is that patients that were, this was women with breast cancer after chemotherapy that felt that they had chemo brain, compared to those, it was a randomized trial, and so some were in the Tibetan sound meditation, some were not, and those who were in the sound meditation improved their memory and their speed cognitive function. And so we're now actually doing another study of that with collaboration with Brazil, with Einstein Hospital, actually looking at brain imaging and seeing if there's actually structure changes in the brain. For now, what we found is that at least they improved their memory, they improved their speed cognitive function, which, as you know, that affects your quality of life, and that's also very important. So the other part that we, again, back to our diagram, is what about the social component? And actually, in the last few years, we had a new faculty join our team, Catherine Milbury, who's a social psychologist. And so when she was talking about connection, she was talking about the connection of patient and caregiver. We were talking about a connection of meditation to yourself, right? And so what about kind of coming full circle? And so we did an intervention which was for both. And one of the interesting things of this intervention was we taught them Tibetan meditation, a Tibetan yoga practice. So it was meditation with some movements, breathing and movements. And one of the interesting things that happened, that as we were designing this study, at the beginning, as most of the studies, the instructors are teaching the people, and the people are looking at them. But then we said, since this is for couples, they all have to come with the patient and the caregiver, we asked them, now that you know what you're doing, look at each other. And when they're looking at each other, not only it supports them practicing, but suddenly, besides their practice, they would reach out either with the feet or with the hand. So it enhanced also the connection. So something that was mentioned also in the panel about supporting how do we do these activities, how do we get engaged. So they mentioned, right, kind of having it with someone, kind of what sometimes we call the buddy system, which we know in the literature is very clear that in exercise is very useful. In meditation, we find that is useful too. So when one feels that dragging your feet to the cushion is too much, the other one says, come on, yesterday you did it and you felt better. So, and then sometimes vice versa. So it's important. So we did find that actually in this study, we found that there was decreased fatigue, decreased depressive symptoms, increased spirituality, particularly in the patient side more, and also the social connectedness was stronger. And beautiful qualitative analysis on what they said to each other and relation. There were not only couples. Sometimes they could be mother and daughter, or mother and son, and so forth. So this was a small study, but we're doing larger studies for couples as well. The other area that we started looking at was, how do we bring this to different populations that sometimes we don't have too much in our studies? So we decided to bring it to an African American Christian community. And Lorna McNeil, who's in the Department of Health Disparities, we designed this research together, and it was interesting because at the beginning we purposely didn't call it yoga or meditation. Internally we called it the No Yoga, No Meditation study. It was called Harmony and Health, but of course it had these practices, but we changed some of the names and so forth, and people received it very well. What was interesting, though, is that one of the patients at the end of the study told the instructor, said, "This is great. It's so similar to my yoga." It's like, So, finally, one of the things that is very important too is that I'm talking here about meditation because that's my area. But it's really about the whole lifestyle. So together, Lorenzo Cohen is the PI in this large study we call it Comp Life, comprehensive lifestyle. There is a meditation yoga component, but there's also a nutrition component. There's also exercise component. And not only that, the one that it's kind of puts all together is the psychology component. And the idea of the psychology here is to adhere to the practices. So the psychologist would meet with the patients, not only in person, and then they do it on an iPad on FaceTime. And the idea is that goes over the practice and says, so how are you doing in your yoga? Are you doing, oh, it's difficult. How can I help you? So the psychologist is also helpful to adhere to the practices. Or the nutrition, how is it going? And also she communicates back to the nutritionist and says, you know, it's been difficult for her to do this. So it's been really, putting it all together has been really, really helpful. We're still in the middle of the study, so we don't have data yet. But other researchers, such as Dean Ornish, have done comprehensive lifestyle, both in heart disease as well as in prostate cancer. And the research shows that it's very helpful. The question, and this is really the very important part, is that many of these studies are done in a way that they're so intense, and while you do them, they're great. And even in meditation too, we have studies that in our own studies, while they do them, we have great results, and then suddenly, 6 months later, we see what happened. All the results are gone. Are you still practicing? No. Okay, so the moment you stop practicing, it's like stop taking the medicine. So part of the lifestyle, as I was saying earlier, the good part is it works when you're doing it. The bad part is it works only when you're doing it. So you have to keep on doing it. The question is how much, right? And in meditation, someone mentioned us today about, besides having that time in the cushion, which I think it's important, and as Maria said, in the morning is one way, it's not the only time. I think what's important is to find times during the day, to have times during the day, what I call taking your meditation pill, which is not a pill, it's a breath, breathing, connecting. And actually we'll do that in a moment. Because partly is kind of being in a place that can be helpful for you to connect. This is a view in a place from Tibet, and many times I say, when I read the Tibetan text, they talk about sky. They have so many words for sky. But this is because this is kind of their office window. If you look at my office window, luckily I have a window, but it doesn't look like this. And so partly is, what about, in one of the handouts that I gave you, a good friend of mine, Susan Bauer Wu, has a formula that I really like, and it's the formula of stop. So stop is a great meditation pill. So stop is like this. Stop whatever you're doing now, that's the S. T, take a deep breath. So don't just listen to me, take a deep breath. O would be open, observe, still breathe. And P would be proceed, or maybe you're not ready to proceed. Maybe you still want to be in the open and observe, right? So this stop formula could be a great meditation pill for you to do in any different situation. Whether it's, I had a caregiver the other day said, I was home and I was cooking and I felt, I hate cooking. I don't want to cook anymore today. I don't feel good today. And she said, stop. Take a deep breath, observe. Took a few breaths, she noted. But then she said, now I feel re-energized. Now I want to cook. So, so whatever it is, whatever situation, and it might seem like, maybe some oncologists would say, well, why is that important? But we know why that is important, and not only in our own health, in our social health, and how that helps in our quality of life. So, what we know about stress is that it affects not only our whole body through the adrenal gland and the cortisol and so forth, but actually research shows by our colleague Anil Sood and others that it goes all the way to the tumor cancer environment, which means that we don't have research that shows that stress causes cancer, but we do have research that shows that stress promotes cancer. So in his research, and I'm not going to go over the research, it shows that, for example, in mice that were injected a tumor, I'm trying to remember, they were injected a tumor, they were injected cancer. When they were stressed, the tumor proliferated, so metastasized. Those who were not, let me back up. So they were divided, these mice, ones were stressed, ones were not, and the stressful was just confine them in a space. And those who were confined and stressed 3 hours a day, their tumor proliferated and metastasized much faster than those who were not. And we know a lot that metastasis is really what drives less survivor. So it's very important to take care of yourself. We see that meditation could be one of the medicines, and it's not just for the mind, but it's for the body, mind, and spirit. So it has, it impacts in decreasing anxiety and emotions, improves sleep, improves memory and cognitive function, increases spiritual awareness and sense of well-being, regulates blood pressure, increases spiritual connectedness, and finding meaning. We actually, in the clinic that I hold at MD Anderson now, so besides the classes that I do, and you have that in your newsletter as well, we have 3 classes, the one with breath, the one with sounds without and the one with movements that are really what we learned in the research we brought back to the clinic. And then we looked what happens in one session, before and after. And what we noticed is that we can have reductions in anxiety, in fatigue, in distress, improved in well-being, and so forth, and in one session. So then partly is, if you can have this in one session, as you do more of this practice, you can maintain this. So you can maintain this over and over. So in a way, as I call this many times, it's like bringing these practices that were once in caves or in monasteries to the clinic. So now they are part of the clinic. This is our medical director, Gabriel Lopez, and he and Dr. Liu, who's our physician in integrative medicine, really helped to bring this mind-body recommendations as part of a multidisciplinary approach, particularly to the things that we find in research: anxiety, mood disturbance, chronic pain, improved quality of life. We have group sessions, we have individual sessions, and now faculty and staff are saying, what about us? So what you got today in that other handout, this newsletter, you're the first ones. July 2017. That's not very mindful, right? We are ahead. But in any case, so as I was working with Dr. Lenigan on the handouts, we were just printing this 2 days ago, and I thought, well, let's give them to you. So again, we just wrote this with Lorenzo and Gabe, and so it's tools to improve your life, and it talks about the classes that we do, which really are bringing the research back to the classes, and also how do we do the rest of the day. So a lot of times, as I was saying earlier, so we meditate, let's say 10 minutes a day, and in fact, in our website there, you have meditations that you can use. They're free for you. They're both in English and in Spanish. The one connecting with your heart, which is the one that I recommend to start with, it's 11 minutes. It's 11 minutes not because there's any esoteric number in 11. It's because it was 10, and being Latin, I went over, so it became 11. But partly is, besides doing those 11 minutes a day, is how do we do the other 23 hours and 49 minutes? So how do we incorporate with that meditation pill, with the STOP formula? How do we do it? I teach how to engage with things that we're doing every day. Meditation and tea, meditation and writing, meditation and art, meditation and nature. Yesterday I had the fabulous opportunity to be in the Niagara Falls. It's like, what a great place to meditate and feel the power of water. A couple of weeks ago I was in Nicaragua and there was an active volcano. So when you are in nature, what a great opportunity to incorporate that in your practice. So I thought that we would, there's also the other thing, there's many resources that we have, including particularly our website. We have a meditation page. We have audios and videos, as I was explaining. We're creating an app that we're going to first do research, and then we'll, hopefully, if it works, we'll have it open for everyone. And in a way, as my teacher, Lopon Tenzin Namdak, he's now 92 years old, lives in Nepal. I've learned great things from him. But one of the simple things is, may all beings be happy. May I be happy. What are the tools that I need to be happy? And meditation is one of them. I'm not saying it's the only one. So this is a Tibetan letter A, which is the first of those three that I was mentioning in that study. But it's also a symbol of being back in harmony. And being back in harmony, this is the letter A, which is white because it's space. It actually should be crystal clear. And these are the colors of the other elements that when they are in harmony, they support your heart, mind, heart, consciousness being in balance. So what I'd like to do now is take a few minutes, a short meditation that can help you balance mind, breath, and body. And hopefully you can join. So, as you can see, we don't need to be in a particular monastery or in a particular cave. We don't need to be in the Niagara Falls either. What we're going to do is we're going to be just in our seats. If anyone prefers to sit on the floor, you're welcome to. But you can stay on the chair. Now, what I would prefer is for you not to fall back on the chair. We're not going to kind of do the mantra of snoring meditation. What we're going to do is we're going to be a little forward on the chair, if you can. Of course, if you have any back issues, please feel free to use the rest of the seat. But come a little forward. Have your feet on the ground. Okay? And for a moment, start noticing your breath that may allow your mind to come inwards. So let every breath be an invitation to drop into this present moment. See if you can bring that breath not just into your lungs, but allow it to come lower towards your abdomen. See if you can feel it in your abdomen. Maybe place one of your hands, or both hands, right in front of your belly button, and just notice that maybe as you breathe in, it expands almost like a balloon, and when you breathe out, it contracts. Breathe in and expands. Breathe out and contracts. And keep on doing this breathing. This is the breathing that can help with that relaxation response. And as you keep on doing this breathing, notice how you're sitting, hopefully comfortably on the chair, feet on the ground, support of the earth. But also align your back, straighten your back. If it's comfortable, even stretch your arms up, almost like wanting to grab the sky. And as you stretch, keep on breathing into your abdomen. Let any tensions in your back dissolve as you stretch and breathe. And when you're ready, allow the arms to slowly come down, but don't bend your back. Relax your hands as you rest them in kind of on your lap, one on top of the other. Elbows out a little bit so you open your chest and you open your heart. As you keep on breathing lower into your abdomen. Allow the tensions to dissolve as you focus on your breath. Relax your mouth, particularly your jaw. A lot of times we put a lot of tension there. Relax your tongue, place it in your upper palate, or maybe behind your teeth. And let your eyes be relaxed. If they're closed, let them not be too tight. If they're open, look to the tip of your nose and into the ground, a peaceful gaze. And keep on breathing. Into your abdomen, back through your nose. If your mind gets distracted, bring it back to your breath. Don't judge what distracts you. Don't criticize yourself for being distracted. Just come back to your breath. If it's useful, you can visualize your breath as light, maybe even give it a color like green light. And if your mind gets distracted, bring it back to that green light. If you prefer another color, you can use that too. But still breathe into your abdomen and back through your nose. Enjoy the tensions that dissolve and just let them go and notice how you're feeling more relaxed, more open. With every breath, notice that your body is a support for the breath, a support for the stillness, that it's not just the stillness of your body, but the stillness of your mind as the breath is your anchor. A few more breaths like this. Allow the chattering of your mind to quiet down and start paying attention to that silence instead of following sounds. And when you pay attention to that silence, it might open the doorway to your inner peace. And with less chattering of the mind and in that inner peace, you might recognize a different kind of awareness. An awareness that it's not like a monkey mind, but it's an awareness like the sun being present. Like the sun at dawn softly rises and illuminates without bias, without illuminating one place and not another, without grasping or rejecting, just being present. And with every breath, you're more familiar with that kind of awareness. A radical awareness of being present without judgment or criticism. Of being in your mind heart that allows you to connect to your loving kindness, to your compassion, to your joy, to your peace of mind, and expand it to others in this room, to others at home, at work, all over the world, and back to you, because as your mind, heart is open to give, it's also open to receive. Enjoy that giving and receiving, that warmth of those qualities. Maintaining that sense of connectedness. Know that you could always tap back to this, to your home. And so maintaining this sense of connectedness without opening your eyes if they're closed. Just relax a little bit your body Maybe stretch your legs, relax your hips and your torso. Maybe massage a part of your body that needs, maybe the knee. And maybe massage your face, maybe slowly open and close your eyes as you integrate with the external world without losing touch of your inner home. So do it slowly. Very slowly. So how was that? That was only 10 minutes, a little less than 10 minutes. So, was it refreshing? Is it something that you think you can incorporate in your daily life? So, as one of the panel speakers said, I agree, a step at a time. You know, don't say, okay, now I'm going to meditate an hour a day. It's probably not going to happen. We have a saying in Tibetan, kale, kale, slowly, slowly. So say you now take some kind of goal for yourself and see, well, I could probably do this 3 times a week for 3 minutes. Okay? And as she said, put it in your calendar. You know, you have meeting with so many people, meet with yourself and honor it. So even if your best friend says, hey, let's have coffee today. Said, yeah, but not, you know, they say at 8 o'clock in the morning, let's do it 8:30 because I need to have a very important meeting. Yeah. The meeting with yourself is very important, and I'm not joking here. It's actually very important. We need to give time to ourselves. And I say this particularly also to caregivers, okay? So do that and see how they change. Log the changes. See in a week, see in a month, see in a year. So, there's all different ways of support. Both Lorenzo and I also are active in the social media to support bringing what we learn in research into the world. This is our website. This is actually a photo that I need to thank Mathieu Ricard for. He's a great photographer besides a great meditator. And that's my email. Feel free to email me. But look into our website. In the handouts that you have the website too. As I said, we have audios, videos. They're available. They're free, even though some of the videos originally were done for people that were only at MD Anderson, that were inpatients and couldn't come to our outpatient clinic. Today, we have them in the website, so you can be in Tanzania and do them. So thank you very much, and hope that this helps you to bring meditation into daily life. Thank you. Do you want time for questions? Yeah, so we have some time for questions. Yes, ma'am.
Classes online?
So what we have online, we have a 20-minute, for example, connecting with the heart, that it's like a class. It's not exactly the class, but it's a similar like the class. And I just recorded some with movements that are going to be soon in the website too. I also have I do classes in different parts of the United States, and so I have a website, alechaul.com, and you can look there as well. And I will have some things on YouTube soon. So yeah. But there's plenty of teachers that look at things locally. That's another important thing. A lot of times when they say, what kind of meditation, what kind of yoga, I think all of them are useful. It's important that you have a good relationship with your teacher. And I think it's important to have something local that you can go to. You know, it's great to have a great teacher, but if you're not going to do the practice and wait until you see him or her again, might not be so beneficial to you. It's better to have someone that you can go and will help you do the practice every day. Was that a question over there, sir? Yes?
3 sounds that connect to 3 colors in 3 places in the body. Could you give us the 3?
No, just kidding. Yes, so, first one, ah. Let me go back so you could probably, it's easier to... And there's a book by my teacher, Tenzin Wangyal Rinpoche, called Tibetan Sound Healing, and that actually has 5 sounds. I'm just giving you 3. So, the first one, as you see, forehead, white or crystal clear, and the idea is that when something pops up in your mind, let's say my boss gave me too much work this weekend, and I'm like, ugh! You know, when I just comfortably in Niagara Falls and my boss pops up, you know, and I have this reaction, so I say, Now, I'm not clearing away my boss, by the way. What I'm clearing away is that reactiveness. So when I say what I'm clearing away is the reactiveness and come back to spaciousness. Not spaciness, spaciousness, openness, kind of a feeling of unclutteredness. Then, with that, so that relates to the quality of space. Then we come to the throat, is Om. So Om, red color, and Om has all these wonderful qualities. So when I say Om, it's a sense of completeness. Om. I feel like I'm gathering and feeling comfortable in my throat chakra as a sense of grounding. The qualities, usually we say loving kindness, compassion, peace of mind, equanimity, joy. But any qualities that you feel comfortable. And then come to the heart mind. The heart mind is Hung, blue, and the Hung is almost like when we say Hung, the way we talk about Hung is a quality that helps you focus your mind, but also this blue light is like sharing these qualities into your life. For example, if I was clearing with my boss, I was taking out all my anger and frustration. In the Om, I kind of feel back in my completeness. In the Hung, I bring that sense of completeness or maybe a particular quality, maybe patience, that I bring into that relationship with my boss and heals that. But also through the Hung in the heart, you can feel that that goes to everyone's heart mind, and then back to you and reconnect. Okay?